Welcome to Investing Uncensored. I'm your host, Andre Stewart. And if you're thinking about getting into real estate investing or have a home in general, this is the episode for you. Have you ever done a transaction? Well, let me say this. If you've been in real estate and have done 3 or 4 transactions, whether it be buying or selling, have you ever had a what the fuck moment when dealing with a real estate agent where you like, this mother has no idea what they're doing, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show you how to never have that experience ever again, so you don't ever have that great feeling of having to experience what that's like. So let's go. Only 250 of those people are millionaires. I don't know if people know this, which they probably wouldn't. You're just trying to sell a house or get into real estate. I'm a data person. There's 3 million real estate agents in the US. Out of the 3 million, that means there's 3 million people that have taken the test and became a licensed real estate agent. Out of that 3 million, 1.5 are registered agents. Out of that 1.5, which means they hang their license with a brokerage. So out of that 1.5 that has hung their hat with the brokerage, people have the idea that real estate agents make a lot of money. Only 250 and under are millionaires. So that's like 0.015% of all agents are millionaires. That ain't even 1%. That ain't even close to 1%. Most new agents make less than $10,000 a year. So if you're a brand new agent starting out, you're probably making $5,000 realistically. You got to be doing, because on average, maybe you can be making, if you do 2 deals in a year, you might make 10 grand, because I mean, real estate commission on houses nowadays is probably going to be about $5,000 depending on the market. If you're in like a bigger city like LA or somewhere, it's going to be obviously more than that. But if you're in like the Southeast, I mean, homes are selling for like $100,000 or $200,000. Like, you're not really making that much money. So anyway, you can see how you make 10,000 or less if you're in, it just depends on the market. But on average, most make around 65,000. Actually, I think it's $56,620. That's the average real estate agent makes. That's not a lot of money. Like, you can go to McDonald's if you're in LA or California. I think minimum wage is increased. Like, you can make $56,000 a year doing almost anything that's 40 hours in the US. So you're not making a lot of money. So that means that most people that are agents, they're not making a lot of money, so they're not motivated. I honestly think most real estate agents should probably just be listing agents, because like, if you've done the real estate transactions, or if you haven't got into real estate yet and you want to get into it, when you get an agent, they really don't know what the hell they're doing. In the past 2 years, every single agent on the buyer side of the transaction, I've had to help them. I've had to speak to the agent and then deal with the title company, or speak to the agent and get the information so I can speak to the buyer directly. I've had to basically control every single transaction that I've done, because buyers they don't have experience. So like, honestly, I really don't think agents should go around telling people that, hey, I'm a real estate agent. Because when you say something like that, most people think real estate agents are very professional, or they think, I don't know, I don't want to say they think it's prestigious, but they think it's like, oh man, that person's a professional. No, to pass the real estate exam, it requires a 70%. 70%. That's 1% higher than a D. So it doesn't take a rocket science to become a real estate agent. And so you can kind of see that when it plays out. Like, when you're dealing with a real estate agent, I'm going to give some examples in a few minutes. And I'm pretty sure most of you, like I said, if you've done over 3 or 4 transactions, you know what I'm talking about. But when you get a real estate agent, for example, and there's certain key indicators that you should look for when choosing a real estate agent. And there are some that you should not, right? If you see that they have certain traits or certain, I would say, lack of experience, which I'm going to break down, you shouldn't choose that person as a real estate agent. For example, I'm doing a transaction right now, and I've gone through 3 agents in the last 7 months on one property. The last agent that I got, let me give the first agent, I don't want to say they were horrible. They didn't do a good job. When the deal got to the closing table, we were one day out from closing, and the seller wanted to back out because they couldn't get an employment letter from a previous employer because they were going a traditional route. So, the traditional route, you got to get 2 years tax returns, you got to get all kind of work history. So they couldn't get the HR department to answer the call for this last one document. So they wanted to buy this house because it's an Airbnb that I have, and they were going to do the same thing. They were in New Mexico. So I was like, you know what? Let's just do seller financing. The agent didn't know how to structure or say, you talk about seller financing with the particular buyer's client or with their client. They didn't know how to talk about seller financing. So when the deal came to it, it was about to fall through the table. I called, I had to go through and break down the guidelines of the seller financing with the agent on the phone with the title company on a conference call. So then that person was like, oh, I think that's a great idea. Let me go back and try to pitch it to my client. Couldn't do it. They couldn't figure it out. We got all the way down to the client agreed to seller financing, got all the way down to it, and then it fell through because something happened with the agent. I can't even say exactly what that is, what happened. But that's just an example of like the agent, the real estate agent didn't know about seller financing. And I'm not saying all agents should know about that, but you should know some form of seller financing if you're a real estate agent. I know you should. So the ball fell through on this one due to seller financing, which stick with that because my third agent that I'm gonna bring up, it was also seller financing. So that deal fell through on the first deal. Second deal, person came, the client had a bankruptcy. This person did not know that the client had a bankruptcy on their credit. If a person comes to you and they want to buy a house, you as an agent should ask for a proof of funds letter from that client. When you get that proof of funds, that person should also be like, hey, I'm not saying it's not on the client for not letting the agent know, hey, I had a bankruptcy before. Do you think I can get this house? That should have came up. The agent should have had a conversation with the lender and get all this ironed out. The agent should have been on the phone with the lender saying, hey, is this good? Is this a good approval? They don't have anything weird that can come up in underwriting that could cause this deal not to go through. That's the conversation that the agent should be having with the lender. Didn't happen. We get all the way to week 3 when the appraisal has been taken. The person came out to do the appraisal. When you do an appraisal on a house to buy, that's like the last thing you do before the thing is getting ready to close. How do we get all the way to getting the appraisal and not knowing that this person had a bankruptcy, even though they were about to be out of the bankruptcy? Like, that's on the agent for not communicating with the lender to figure this out when they first got the proof of funds to be able to, go shopping for the house. Again, drop the ball. So we get all the way through to a couple days before closing, and then we find out that this person has a BK. So now she didn't even know what to do. I should have knew better, and I knew better when I talked to my agent and I said, what's the status of this agent? Do they do this full time, or this is something that they're doing part-time? He said, oh, she's a part-time agent. I knew then that we were gonna have a problem with the transaction because that's one of the don'ts when it comes to choosing a real estate agent, which I'm gonna get to that at some point. So when he told me that she was part-time, I said, all right, we about to run into a problem. And sure enough, 2 weeks later after I said that to him, we ran into a problem because again, I'm a lender. So I know this stuff, and I'm also an investor. I've been doing this for, almost a decade now, so I know what to expect. Once I found out she was part-time, 2 weeks later, and I'm like, are you sure? Throughout this entire process, I do my due diligence on every person that's gonna buy a property from me. If they send over a proof of funds, I'm gonna look up that bank. That's what I do. I looked up this bank, and this is what happened with the first deal. First deal, the reason why I knew that we were gonna have a problem and why I offered seller financing, I looked up the bank. I saw who the bank was. I looked up the person who was the loan officer, and I called them directly to figure out what was going on and if the loan was gonna close. This how thorough you have to be in this day and age when you're dealing with real estate agents. And it sucks that that's what it has come to, but that's what it is. So this is how I knew that deal wasn't gonna go through, and this is how I knew that it was a letter that they needed to get from the HR department that they couldn't get. I knew this. We didn't get this information from the agent. We even told the agent what was going on because he didn't even know. So fast forward back to this person, I looked up the lender, reached out to him, tried to get in touch with him, couldn't get in touch with him. That was another bad sign in the case with this deal because the lender was not responsive. Anytime you get into a situation where you have an unresponsive lender, there's a reason why. Something's going on, but they don't want to kill the deal because they want to figure out how they can get it done, and they probably can't. In the case with the first guy, when I called that lender, he kept saying, oh yeah, we're gonna get it done, we're gonna get it done. I just gotta get this letter. Shouldn't be no problem. Never got it done. Now, second agent, second deal we're talking about now, same thing. Couldn't get in touch with the agent. Couldn't get in touch with the loan officer. Issue already. Kept going back and forth with the agent. Eventually, I had to get on the phone with my agent, their agent, and the client to figure out what the situation was. And then we had to bring in an experienced bankruptcy attorney to tell the client what to do. This is what we did. We went and orchestrated a conversation with a bankruptcy attorney on our side to tell this agent and her client what to do, which doesn't make any sense. Like, this should have been done by this agent already. So our attorney told this person what to do. She jumped on it, got to it. When you're in a BK, I did an episode on this where I talk about you being able to still buy properties when you have a bankruptcy. So she was out of the bankruptcy that she did, but this is her boyfriend or her husband who was about a month out from his. So they were trying to get a letter of credit, which is what I believe that you have to get issued to you from the treasurer for you to be able to get a new form of debt. And so that's what she was trying to get, and it was just taking a while for her to be able to get it. But no one knew this. So we had to bring this to light in the transaction, which should have been taken care of way before we got to the part of getting an appraisal done. So that was a rookie mistake on the agent. How did you not know this when you first started dealing with the client? You wouldn't have even got this far if you're a smart agent. You would have been like, you got a BK in the last how many years? I don't know if I want to touch this. Let me get proof of funds from the lender before I even waste my time in going through this process. So she wasted. This started in September. So the first client, that deal dropped off in July. And so then we got a new buyer in September. This deal, well, this situation with this person lasted from September all the way to almost December. And I'm like, this whole time, we're still obviously, we put a contingency in the contract because I'm smart, that we had a clause to where we can just back out of the deal at any given time and not have any what's it called? I can't think of the term right now just because I can't. But anyway, so we had a clause in our contract to where we could still entertain other offers. And then at any given time, if we wanted to back out of the contract, we could. So at some point in time, another person, and here's the other client. This is number 3. This is the agent that kind of pissed me off the most. Now we're to number 3. This guy came in and said, hey, the agent came over, I got a cash buyer. I'm like, oh, really now? This is a $400,000 house. He says, I got a cash buyer. I told my agent, is this legit? And I'm like, do you know this agent? He's like, yeah, I know the agent. He's pretty straight. I said, bro, $400,000 cash? I've been doing this a long time. I'm like, I don't see it. So I said, put me on the phone with the agent. I just want to have a conference call between me, you, and him. He said, yeah, man, they good. I don't know them, but I know they bought other houses. I'm like, were you on that transaction? I wasn't on the transaction, but I know they bought houses before. That's not buying a house cash. Again, I know this because as a lender, when we do private funds, we tell the client to let the agents know that it's cash, because that's good as cash. That's what we tell them, because literally it's the same thing. So when he came and said this person was going to do $400,000 cash, I said, are you sure? Have you seen a proof of funds? Yeah, no, they're good for it. I said, all right, cool, let's run it. I said, so go ahead and cancel the contract between this other lady who has this bankruptcy, because we ain't going nowhere. It's been almost 3 or 4 months. Nothing's getting solved here, but we'll keep that as an option. Don't tell them we're going to cancel the contract just say, hey, we want to bow out for now, and if she gets the letter, we'll entertain it again. But as of right now, we don't want to be tied in this contract, so let us go. That's what we did to keep them at bay. So we kept communicating with them, because I was like, something's weird about this $400,000 cash offer. It just don't seem right. No one does that, and they don't have a proof of funds. In my experience, when I've dealt with hedge funds or big boys, they have a fluid document that's connected to their bank. They send it over. This thing changes daily as their bank balance changes. Crazy. I've never seen anything like it until I started doing real estate and doing transactions with people that just had cash. They send over a document. This thing changes daily. I said, do they have a proof of funds? Have you seen it? Do they have the document that shows their bank balance if they're paying cash? No, but I'm getting it. They're good. All right, let's go ahead and run it. I signed the contract because I'm listening to my agent tell me that this agent is good. Sign the contract. They come back and they say, hey, do you think your seller would entertain seller financing? Immediately, I knew they didn't have the money. What they did was, which pissed me off, and the agent should have knew better, because he should have checked for proof of funds at the time that he didn't. They wanted to get me under contract at $350,000 and then go do a hard money loan. They didn't have the cash, so they were trying to do seller financing. So I was like, you know what? Let's roll with it. I said, you know what? Their strategy was like, they came back and said, hey, we got the cash, but we want to know if your client or your seller is willing to do seller financing to hedge on some kind of capital gains tax. I'm like, who the hell says I want to avoid capital gains? I said, that's when I was like, all right, they went from wanting to pay cash and being able to close quickly to wanting to do seller financing. I said, bro, I told my agent, something's up. I said, they don't have the money. I said, but we'll entertain this just to see, because we still got the other person over here, so I really don't care. And they said they were gonna close, and I think it was 10 days. Anytime I've ever done a transaction in the past, they come through and they close that day. They will come through and stroke a check, instant cashier's check, boom. Or they come through with a check, boom. It takes literally 24 hours. The longest I've ever seen with cash was 3 days. That's because this person wanted to do a little bit more due diligence on a property. But the other person that I know who paid cash doesn't care. If she's gonna do a rehab to it, she just rolls up in there in her little, flip flops and just writes a check, boom, out of here. I knew then it was a problem. I was like, all right, I'll just go with it, because they say they'll figure it out by the 20th. Lo and behold, they didn't even understand seller financing. So we were gonna do a wrap, because I have a mortgage on the house. We were gonna do a wrap mortgage, which is kind of similar as seller financing, but it's just more subject to the existing loan. Like a wrap mortgage is you doing another mortgage surrounding the existing loan. They were weird about that. They were like, oh, they didn't understand it. So then they were like, okay, well, we want to buy the house cash, but we want to use a hard money loan. As soon as they came, and this is now 2 days before closing. So prior to this, when they first came, which was like, I think it was like December 8th or 9th, they came and they said, hey, we want to pay cash for the house. I was like, all right, cool. So this agent was like, man, I've been in Mexico. They came to me a couple weeks ago trying to offer $250, and I'm like, that's not gonna get it done. He just had this arrogant attitude. I was like, man, come on, man, come submit your highest and best offer if you really want to get this deal done. That's what I told him. So I know that, they got the cash, they gonna do it. Fast forward 7 days later, now he's like, oh, well, see, he was so cocky in the beginning, and I told my agent, I said, look at how cocky this dude is. He ain't checked the proof of funds. He don't know anything about these people. He looked at a website, and now he just came to the conclusion that these people have cash. But if they have cash, why would they come as soon as the contract is signed and saying they want to do seller financing? Oh, well, no. So we knew then. And so as soon as they came back, I don't know, this went from December 9th to the 18th, when they came with this BS on seller financing, my agent was like, ugh. He said, me and him had this conversation the same day you sent over that contract for cash. He said he knew immediately once you came back with that contract and they said they wanted to do cash and then they offered seller financing, he knew then it was going to be a problem. This is the kind of stuff an agent should know. You should know with experience if a person comes cash. You don't want to waste anybody's time. You don't want to waste your own time because the deal can fall through because you came in $20,000 under asking price, and the only reason why we're entertaining it is because you said you had cash. So it was either malicious or they were trying to be slick about it to get a deal $20,000 under because it was cash, and now we're under contract, and now they can do some kind of amendments or whatever the case is. That's what they did. This is an example of where this person should have knew this. He should have been like, yo, send me the proof of funds. Send me the letter of credit that you have from your bank showing that you have the funds, cash, to be able to buy this. I don't want to waste my seller's time. I don't want to waste the seller's time with you doing this. So then fast forward, and if you can tell that I'm fired up and I'm talking a lot, it's because I'm literally going through this right now. This is why I'm so upset about it, because this is something that I'm dealing with. And so I talked to another one of my friends who's an agent in Florida. Similar situation. He's like, man, why don't these agents, so many deals are falling through because agents don't have the experience. And then I talked to another one of my clients who's trying to buy a property, and he said the same thing. He's like, one of his agents was taking him to show him a house, and it needed so much work. And my guy does rehabs. He said, this person took me to see a house, and I'm just looking at so many problems that it has. And this agent's like, oh my God, this is such a great house. I'm like, you have cracks in the doorway, which means there's probably some foundation issues. It's just so many different things that this agent is not seeing looking at the house. And the person who has experience is like, no, there's a foundation issue. Look at the doorway. Look at the crack. It's just crazy how they don't know this. But enough of me going on my ramble. I'm just saying, like, most of these agents don't have experience, and this is the reason why deals fall through. So for you to be able to not experience something like what I'm saying, there's a couple things that I do to vet my agents. And then I'm going to give you what the internet says you should do. The first thing I do when I vet my agent, I have the same agent that I use in Georgia or in Florida when I do deals. But if I'm going into a new market like I did in Phoenix or Vegas, I go to Zillow and I look up top agents. I look up their ratings. If they got 5 stars, whatever that is, I'm always going with somebody with 5 stars, maybe 4.5. I look up how many transactions they've done in the last 24 months, recent. I look up the reviews, what people have said about them. And then I look up what experience or knowledge they have in the local market. How many transactions have they done in my local market? Because they say you're in Vegas and they could have done deals in Henderson. They could have done deals in a different part of Vegas. But if I'm doing a deal in Summerlin and they don't have any experience selling in Summerlin, I might not want to work with them. Just because they might be good at Henderson or some other part of Vegas, they might not be good in Summerlin. Summerlin is a rich demographic. So the demographic is different. Like Summerlin is like where boxers and athletes live. And that's kind of where my house was. And that's where I found my agent. The reason why I said Summerlin. So I want someone that's done deals in that area. So that's kind of how you choose who you're going to work with. And then I look at the price range of their list on what they sell. So what's the average list on when they list a property? Not the sale, but what do they list it at? Because if they're used to listing properties at like 140,000 and my house is 450,000, that's a completely different bracket. So they might not have the network in that market, or they might not know how to market in that market. So that's what I look for. You got to look for home sales, reviews, transaction history, list price, and then I look at 5-star rating. What the internet says you should look for are number of home sales in 24 months, same as me. The list price versus the sales price for their recent transactions, same as what I said. Days their listings have stayed on the market. I forgot I do that too, but that's just regular stuff. But days their sales listings have stayed on the market. That's a good thing. I don't really do that. I look for everything else, but if they don't have any current listings, you can't really see that. You can't see how long their listings have stayed on the market though. That is true. Then they say their professional ranking, which is what I said. And then the average sales price for their transactions, which is the same thing that I said. Like if they're selling a $100,000 house, they have no experience selling a luxury house that's like $400,000, $500,000. So that might not be a good look. So here's where you can save yourself the headache, time and money, and like I want to choke this mother because they don't know what they're doing. These are the signs you should look for when it comes to that. Kind of what I said about the last guy and the last girl. Arrogance, super arrogant. Did not like the fact that this person was so arrogant. Normally when you kind of run across a good agent, the ones that have 5 stars, I mean, they might be confident, but they're not just on some like super arrogant, can't reach them, just super confident, not doing their due diligence. They don't do that. They're confident, like, you know what, I can get this done for you. And they give examples on how. They have all the information, like they got the proof of funds, I get all of this. They make you feel good about the situation even before you get under contract with them. They give you all the details about their buyer before you even, before you even entertain whatever. So that's how you know, like you just have a good agent. They're just more open and they communicate with you better. The internet says they're overly pushy. They don't know about or don't have experience selling in your local area. That goes back to what I just said. They aren't excellent at marketing homes. That's huge because you gotta be doing open houses. You gotta have some kind of strategy, whether it be an email blast or you gotta have some kind of strategy when it comes to marketing homes. Or, like I said, they're selling homes part-time or as a hobby. Based on the statistic of what I told you, most agents are doing it as a hobby or they're new or they're doing it part-time. Like again, the lady that I mentioned with the BK, her client had a BK. She was a part-time agent. She didn't know what she was doing. So she started calling my agent for advice and help. She started calling me for the same thing. These are some of the things that you should look for when it comes to deciding on what kind of agent you're going to choose. I would say this to you. If you're trying to, I would say, make money in real estate, I think there's other ways you can make money as an investor. If you're trying to sell your home, I think what we just said right now will be a good way for you to go about, and this is not from an investment standpoint. This is if you're just trying to sell your home. I think you should go based on what we just said in regards to how you're going to find a real estate agent. Because one thing I will also say is if you have a real estate agent and they've had your house listed and it's gone like 45 to 90 days, it shouldn't even make it to 90 days with you having that same agent. I would say after 45 days or 60 days, you need to be trying to move on and find another agent because they're not going to get it done. I think where you can gauge it, if you don't want to fire that agent, maybe you might have multiple showings. Hopefully you have a bunch of showings and you have a lot of feedback from those showings. But if your agent is not getting feedback to give you and you have like 5 or 10 showings, that's a problem. So they should be let go, and you need to get somebody who's going to do the research and get back to the agents on why your house is not being purchased by their particular buyer. That'll give you an indication of what you might have to go fix. Maybe you got to drop the price. Maybe there's something going on in the house that needs to be fixed. But you got to have an agent that does that work, who does that outreach to be able to get you that feedback. You need feedback. I always say feedback is necessary for anything, because if you're not selling a house, you're failing. And there you go, there's your feedback. So then when it comes to investing, I would say this. I don't know if I'm going to continue flipping houses simply because I make more money as a lender doing loans than I do flipping a house. I can make the same amount of money doing 5 deals or even 1 deal that I will make if I sit on a house that I'm flipping in 4 months. So at some point in time in 2025, there's something that I'm working on that if you want to get into real estate investing, or you want to get into real estate, or you want to make more money, there's something that we're working on with Invest for Our Capital that's going to help you make a lot of money without getting into real estate investing and taking on the risk of taking on so much debt and going through what I'm saying, like having experiences where you got to deal with a real estate agent trying to sell your property and then having to carry that mortgage and the carrying costs. Like I've been carrying this one particular house that I'm talking about for 7 months, and the mortgage is like $2,500. So just do the math on that. So I think there's other ways to make money in real estate where you don't even have to be an investor. You can be on the side of where you would have to deal with a real estate agent, but as the lender, you have more control over that. So you kind of tell the agent what to do when you become a lender and they're coming to you to get a property done or get a property financed. So I'm gonna stay tuned for what we're gonna roll out, that we're gonna allow people to make money in real estate outside of being an investor. And if you want to just make more money as a side hustle or as a side gig, what we got coming for you, you're going to be interested in it. But I'm going to say this, about real estate agents, and I'm going to get back to it. I said this before, when you're doing real estate, most of these gurus online selling you courses, they don't tell you the stuff that I'm telling you. You learn it the hard way. So I give you an example. When you're in real estate, you can be a millionaire. You can be a millionaire in real estate. But if you don't have the cash flow coming in, you can run into a problem. So fixing and flipping is great. But what happens is if you're fixing and flipping and you don't have any cash flow coming in, you run into a problem. So here I am trying to free up $100,000. It's taking me 7 months, which should be a 45-month process. But because I'm dealing with bad real estate agents, it's taken almost 7 months. I'm trying to free up $100,000 to keep everything going, to keep, Invest for going, just keep your lifestyle going, whatever it is, or keep your business going. So here I am trying to free up $100,000 to put an injection of capital into my business. And this is where you run into a problem with flipping. Because if you don't have the cash flow coming in, I got sick. And if you have heard a recent podcast of mine, I had vertigo. And so I couldn't work. I couldn't perform at the level of what I'm used to performing for 4 months. So that really hurt my cash flow a lot because I wasn't able to produce like I'm able to produce. They don't talk about this in real estate. So I got cash coming in. That cash was starting to dry up because I could not perform. So now I'm in a situation where I'm not broke by far, but I have a lot of money in assets. And I'm trying to sell them. And then when you are dealing with bad agents or when you're dealing with real estate, and this is why you need to be really sure you want to get into real estate investing and being a flipper, or even just getting into real estate and holding so much debt. Because if you do have a rental property and your tenant moves out, you have to carry that mortgage. And if you have a job and you only have one property and your mortgage is $3,000, and say for instance, you're not making enough money in your current career, and that additional income that you have from a rental property was helping you out, that tenant has left. You couldn't get someone to replace them. Now, what are you going to do? Because now you're paying your mortgage and now you're paying a second mortgage and you're already having a hard time. Anyway, so this is the stuff that I think you should think about in the whole Airbnb situation. This property is an Airbnb. The hurricane hit. It slowed down the revenue coming in from the Airbnb. So not only did my revenue slow up from the Airbnb, I'm also sick and I can't perform. So my revenue is and I still have other properties. I'm doing a flip on another property. You can see how this can become a problem. So this is not every investor scenario, but from a lot of investors that I know, they're going through a similar situation. So I have 4 clients right now that are trying to liquidate because they have multiple assets and their cash is getting squeezed because interest rates are high. So they're still trying to support their lifestyle or someone has moved out of a particular property and they have a situation. So now they're trying to liquidate certain assets to get the capital to keep everything going. So that's one example of, there's 4 clients that I have. I'm not going to, obviously can't name names. One of them is trying to liquidate. I just did a refinance on one of their properties. Now they're trying to refi, pull out cash, and then sell that one to get more cash up front to just pull them forward until they can sell the other one. Another client that I know, she had 5 properties. We refinanced 3. One of them, a hurricane fell on the house, destroyed the house. She's dealing with that. So she's trying to sell other assets to get more capital. Now she has to rebuild a whole house because the insurance is only going to cover so much, because something happened with her insurance to where they're only going to cover a certain amount. She's trying to free up capital. Situation. Another lady paid cash for a house, came in, dropped $200,000 for a house, beautiful house, rehabbed it. I think she paid $120 for it, spent like $60,000 in rehab. She forgot to put the insurance on it. A tree fell on the house, destroyed the whole house. This is the stuff that no one talks about when it comes to real estate investing. This stuff happens. These people tell you to go out and get an Airbnb. But what happens if you get an Airbnb and a recession hits and people aren't going to your place? What happens if a hurricane hits? What happens when you have any kind of situation that's out of your control? What do? So it's all good and great to sell courses on, oh, get into real estate, it's this and this and this and this. But you gotta know the facts. You gotta know all the ins and outs when it comes to real estate. So this is why I want you to understand, if you want to get into real estate, know how to deal with an agent, know the pitfalls of becoming an investor. There's other avenues that you can get into real estate and make money that require way less risk. And so this is one of the reasons why I'm probably gonna stop. I'm probably gonna stop doing real estate from the aspect of flipping or even Airbnbs for a little while. And it's funny because there's this one consultant, business consultant. He said, being a business owner, you end up sometimes having PTSD. He said he was talking to a therapist and his therapist said, you have PTSD from being a business owner. You go through so much stuff. And that's why most businesses fail in the first couple years, because it's so hard. Going through some of the things that I just mentioned to you, you can get PTSD from being in real estate. I got a client in Arizona who went through a situation with a house. He stopped. He's like, I'm cool on real estate, on flipping for like the next year and a half or so. I need a break. I had another client, he just had a house in Georgia, in Augusta. Same thing, he did a flip, leveraged his credit cards to the T, almost lost everything. He's like, bro, I need a break. I told both of them about the 100% financing program that we have. If you want to do fix and flips, 100% purchase, 100% rehab, that's a program that we have. They both were like, nah, I'm good. So that's crazy that you're giving out free money and people that have experience in real estate don't even want to touch it. I myself do this for a living. I'm a lender, don't even want to touch it. This is the thing that you should know before you get into real estate investing, that it is tough. It's a hard road. So think about the things that I'm telling you right now when it comes to becoming a real estate investor, because this is just one scenario with one house. And I can go through 1,000, not only my deals, but deals of clients that I'm funding or have funded. And it's just like, man, it's really not what it's cut out to be. So be on the lookout for what we're going to roll out for people that are interested in getting into real estate, who want to make money in real estate, but who don't want to deal with the stuff that I'm saying. I don't want you to have PTSD from doing real estate. It's not as easy as these TV shows on HGTV make it out to be. So be on the lookout for that video. It's coming to you. And I'll say this, if you're gonna sell a house, go through the checklist of what I gave, the do's and don'ts of selecting an agent before you decide to sell your house. Pick the right agent. If not, don't do it at all. sit on it if you can't afford to. But hey, until next time, take care.